Today's podcast is sponsored by Healthycell. Reach your potential. Get 20% off your first order with code Carter, CARTER, at healthycell.com/Carter. Folks, we've got Congressman Michael Waltz on today. He's joining me to talk about some of the biggest concerns he believes are facing our nation. And I got to tell you, China is probably one of the biggest. I know we've had a lot of focus on Ukraine, and the discussions about Russia, about what is happening in Ukraine, how that's affecting us on a national security scale is much different than how China is handling the situation globally. And I think we really need to pay attention to that. Congressman Michael Waltz will also be discussing his new book, and you guys don't want to miss this because he is really fighting for your children. It is called Dawn of the Brave, and it's about combating the liberal agenda. It's about getting our kids back, taking back our children, our right to raise our children the way that we see fit, not the way that these crazy groomer teachers and, Disney fascists see fit. Not that, but how we see fit. What it means to be a parent in America, what it means to be a conservative parent in America, and what it means to protect your children. Please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at saracarter.com. That is saracarter.com. And while you are there, sign up for our email list so that you don't get shadow banned. We need to sign up for that list. We need to stay in communication with one another because we're still in a battle. We're in a battle for our nation. And we're in a battle to be able to communicate to one another. It was funny. Right now, just as I was reading this, my son sent me a link, and it was for Facebook. And he said, "Hey, Mom, did you see this? I tried to repost your story, but it immediately puts up a warning." And it was a story that we have on our website about fentanyl and how it's killing people across this country. And basically, Facebook sends out this little warning saying, well, you didn't read the whole story first, or you didn't read the story first. Are you sure you want to share this link? It happens to conservative sites all the time. I bet you don't get that same warning all the time on the New York Times or the Washington Post or any other outlet that is to the left. But it does happen to us. So stay in touch. You don't want to be shadow banned. I don't want to be shadow banned. Let's subscribe and get your email on our list, and we'll make sure to stay in touch with you. Guys, don't let smelly things take over your life. No. Use the power of EdenPure Thunderstorm Air Purifier to bring clean smells back to your home. Save $200 on 3 units of EdenPure Oxy Leaf #2 Thunderstorm by using the code SARA3. That's SARA3. SARA3. The EdenPure Thunderstorm Air Purifier proven Oxy technology will quickly destroy viruses in your home, odors, and mold, and so much more. I actually love it. I have them in my house. I have 2 downstairs, 1 upstairs now, and literally it smells like a new home. The air feels different. Any smell in your house, and we've got dogs, we've got a cat, any smell in your house will just vanish in a few seconds. Plus, there are no filters to buy over and over again. You don't need to do that. Right now, you can save $200 on an EdenPure Thunderstorm 3-pack with code SARA3. Get full coverage for your kitchen, office, bedroom, or anywhere you want to get rid of odors. Just like I said, gets rid of all the odors, whether you've got cats or dogs, or whether you just have a regular house that gets kind of smelly. Go to EdenPureDeals.com and put in the discount code SARA, SARE3 to save $200. I want to talk a little bit about what's happening right now in Afghanistan. And the reason I bring this up is because right now the Russians are recognizing the Taliban government. And, in Afghanistan, and I spent a lot of years there, it's always the enemy of my enemy is my friend and all of that stuff. But it's insanity right now how we gave up billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in weaponry and assets and basically armed the Taliban, abandoned Americans under President Trump, emboldened our enemies around the world like Vladimir Putin, like Iran, like Syria, like North Korea, like anybody else in the world, Maduro, anybody else that we would consider an enemy. We've emboldened our enemies. And now we're seeing that the Afghan embassy in Moscow handed over to the Taliban their flag, hoisted their flag at their embassy. There is something going on here, and it's minimizing American presence globally. And it's happening everywhere, guys. That's why I have Congressman Waltz coming up on the show. He's going to talk about this. What is China doing? How are they affecting U.S. posture throughout the world? What are we doing to stop it? We can't afford to be asleep at the wheel. We can't afford it. General Jack Keane was talking about it this week on Fox News and about how we don't have enough weapons to send over to Ukraine. Well, we don't have those weapons because we left them in Afghanistan. We basically armed the Taliban and made them the most well-funded, well-armed terrorist organization in the world. And right now, in the midst of constructing sanctions and increasing isolation by the West for its invasion in Ukraine, Russia decided to hand over the Afghanistan embassy in Moscow to the Taliban. So basically recognizing the Taliban as the full government. And you have to ask yourself why. The reason why Afghanistan was so important is because geopolitically, the way it's situated in the world, it borders Iran, it borders China, it borders Pakistan. You also have India vying and fighting for power along the border. And you have a lot of Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. These are very important places in the world. Not to us, maybe when we're going to work every day, not when we're, trying to get our kids bathed and we're working hard to, just keep up with our life here in the United States. It's important because of its natural resources and where it's positioned. We don't have that lily pad anymore to bounce off of in Afghanistan. We don't have that lily pad anymore of intelligence in that region. We gave it up. I'm not saying we should have been there forever. I'm saying we should have been smart about it. We should have been able to monitor what was happening on that side of the world. And believe me, all that Vladimir Putin is thinking about right now is energy. Getting as much gas, getting as much mineral rights. It's the same thing with China. Accumulation across the globe. Minimizing U.S. presence, which is what we're going to be talking about with Congressman Mike Waltz on the show. Minimizing U.S. abilities globally. And that's exactly what they're doing. World War III isn't always fought the way people think of, with nukes and, with the regular army battling it out on a land. No, it's not about that. It's about economics now. It's about controlling the economic and energy market, right? You control those, you control the world. You put America in debt to the rest of the world, you control America. You manufacture all of America's antibiotics and medicine in China, and guess what? America owes you something. Because if something goes sideways, like we saw happen with COVID, we won't be able to get those products here that we need. Those are national security issues. And the Taliban, they're idiots. The enemy of my enemy is my friend and all this crap. I was in Afghanistan all the way back in 2007, 2008. And I remember leaving Bagram Airfield. And I was crazy. My husband says I was insane. I took a taxi, actually, a regular taxi out of Kabul. I had them come pick me up. And the weirdest thing was that our guys, that were taking me to the front gate, literally walked out in bomb suits to get me to the taxi. And I was like, well, it was like my first trip there. Why are you wearing those bomb suits? And then I look around. The road was literally on each side of this dirt road leaving Bagram were these skull and crossbones and warnings all across this desert landscape where the Russians had left landmines and whatever else they would leave there. Charges, that would go off. I mean, so many children and men and women lost their lives after the Russians left Afghanistan. In the 80s, after that happened, which we ran them out, they just dumped bombs. Either mines from their planes, they dropped them from their planes, or they left them in the ground, landmines. And we were still demining Afghanistan when I was there. There were so many landmines. So, if the Taliban wants to play footsie with the Russians and the Russians want to play footsie with the Taliban, let them have at it. Let them kill each other one day. But guess what? We are going to have to deal with the consequences of all the actions that took place. When President Biden basically abandoned allies and Americans in Afghanistan, abandoned the region, and left all of those weapons behind. And it's not just going to be the Russians and ISIS, which, by the way, is growing at a massive scale in Afghanistan and Pakistan, that is going to be looking at us. But it's going to be China and other enemies, which are already working to undermine us and to undermine our nation. Folks, our attention span, mine not so much. Maybe this morning a little bit. But and every once in a while, your attention span gets shorter and shorter, right? That's just the way things are. The amount of concentrated time without becoming distracted was literally like 12 seconds in 2008. 5 years later, it was only 8 seconds. And the digital age is making it worse because we're not paying attention to what's going on around us. We're all hyper-focused on all of our technology, right? But how do we fix that? The solution is microgel. It ensures maximum absorption of premium nutrients. Healthycell is the next generation of dietary supplements, guys. If you take supplements now in pill form, you're going to want to change. And I'm going to tell you why, because studies show you don't absorb most of the nutrients in pill form. Just look it up. You just don't. Your body just flushes it out, the majority of it. And that can be hard to swallow as well. Vitamins that you can't absorb are literally a waste of money. And what about when you're traveling like me? You don't want to be carrying around all of those pill bottles or having to put them in bags. You could just have Healthycell. It literally is a gel you can just take. You can keep it in your purse. It doesn't take up any space. And doctors and nutritionists who created Healthycell say it is one of the best supplements, if not the best supplement that you can take for your body. I tried it. I ditched the pills. I said, goodbye pills. I don't want you anymore. Journey to a better health with Healthycell. Go to healthycell.com/Carter. That's healthycell.com/Carter and use the promo code Carter for 20% off your first order. How about that? Again, that's healthycell.com/Carter, promo code Carter for 20% off your first order. And I love the taste. Now, without any further delay, we've got Congressman Michael Waltz. He represents Florida's 6th district. He is also Colonel Waltz, and he served as a Green Beret and as an Army Ranger, and he's fighting the good fight right now in Washington, D.C. I'm so happy to have you on the show, Congressman Waltz. It's been a while since we've seen each other in Virginia, in Washington, D.C., where we'd sometimes run into each other in Alexandria at the Royal Cafe. And here you are today on the Sara Carter Show. So thank you so much for being with me.
Oh, it's always great to be with you, Sara.
Well, thank you. The feeling's mutual. And I'm so excited to talk about your new book. And for all of you out there that didn't hear the top of the show or who may not know Congressman Michael Waltz, I don't know how you wouldn't know him. He's always on Fox News. He's always speaking out for Americans and defending our freedoms as a true patriot. But he is a former Green Beret and an Army Ranger. He's retired. He is a congressman out of Florida. And he's written this amazing new book. It's a children's new book titled Dawn of the Brave. Fox News actually has a great story out on it. It's called Representative Michael Waltz Pens Children's Book to Combat Liberal Agenda. We need to take our kids' education back. I couldn't agree with you more, Mike.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. It's really exciting to do a children's book. I've done one book before that called Warrior Diplomat about my time in Afghanistan. And I have to tell you, doing a kid's book was a lot more fun. The great thing about this book is it's part of a series. It's actually part of a subscription. And if you go to bravebooks.com, we deliberately did not put it on Amazon. You can only get the subscription at bravebooks.com. And the kids get one book a month, and each book has a new conservative theme, whether it's faith or family or the Constitution or traditional values. In the case of mine, it's about teamwork and about defending your country and serving your country, serving a cause bigger than yourself. And all of the characters have to come together to defend Freedom Island against a band of pirate wolves that seeks to take their freedoms and seeks to take their land. And they through the course of the story, figure out that each one has strengths and weaknesses, and they have to work together, kind of like we have to do on special forces teams and in the military. They have to work together and emphasize those strengths and cover each other's weaknesses to defend our freedoms.
I want to go right into that because I think for so many parents, and now, you represent your constituents in Florida, and Florida is such a great state. Thanks to you, thanks to Governor Ron DeSantis and others who have really put families first,
Right.
really put children first. But we're really worried. I mean, I'm lucky I'm in Texas. I love this state as well. But across the country, there are so many parents that are concerned about what their children are being taught. And there's a lot of wolves out there, right? And they're
Yep.
in the classroom, they're in our schools. Explain a little bit about what parents can do based on what's happened in Florida. And also, I think Loudoun County, Virginia, where parents stood up for their children's rights. What can be done to combat this? Because it is really frightening.
Yeah, so Sarah, I think we all kind of knew, and I have an 18-year-old daughter who's looking at colleges and universities right now. I think we all knew the liberal agenda is just completely taken over when it comes to higher education. But what COVID exposed when we started with the lockdowns, really, literally, we're right there as our kids were being taught and exposed the garbage that had seeped into lower education, elementary school, and the lower grades. So I think it's a real silver lining that COVID exposed that. Parents are standing up and saying enough. That's what we've seen happen in Loudoun County and in Virginia. They're making their voice heard at the ballot box with the election of Governor Youngkin. Uh, but it's even farther and broader and wider than that. And really, where the epicenter of it, unfortunately, is in a lot of these teachers' colleges, where the left has pushed their woke agenda. It's almost kind of a train the trainer model, as we say in the military. And they're focused on the teachers who will then, for the rest of our children's lives, multiple generations will churn through their classrooms, and this activist agenda will be put on them. And what Governor DeSantis and Governor Youngkin and we in Congress are saying is that's a parent's choice. If you want to talk about sexuality with a pre-kindergartner, with a first grader, and I just want to say my heart goes out to any young person who is struggling with that. But I have yet
Right.
to see a 6-year-old struggling with it. 6-year-old struggling with their alphabet and struggling with how to do basic addition and subtraction. And if they are
Right.
having some issue, that's something for the parents to know about, and that's something for parents to deal with and for families to deal with. Not what we're seeing is these activist teachers truly believe that they know better than parents, and they're better equipped to deal with a young child who is struggling with those issues. Here's my main point, Sarah. We're pushing back. Parents are successfully, I think, standing up, and you absolutely will see that again in the 2022 midterms. But what do we fill that void with? And that's why I'm so thrilled to partner with Brave Books on Dawn of the Brave and on this subscription, that we fill that void as we push back on this activist content. And by the way, it's not just in our schools, it's also in our libraries, it's in our community centers. I mean, they really have successfully flooded the field in ways that we're just now waking up to. But let's also fill it with good traditional conservative content that Brave Books is absolutely doing.
I'm of the belief that I'm like you. let's just balance it out, right? I'm not here to burn books. I'm not here to say, no, you can't think that way. No, that's unacceptable to me. This is America. Everybody has the right to express themselves, but without indoctrinating our children. I'm going to just jump to China really quick and make a correlation. I think for a long time, we've been asleep at the wheel. I talk about this on the podcast all the time. I think parents and citizens, we think, we send our kids to school, we're busy, we go to work, we're paying bills, we don't really understand the whole picture. So we have these wolves, like you say, in the school, and they or in our bureaucracy or at Disney or in, areas that have a lot of influence on our society and our culture. And much like communist governments, like what happened with my mom in Cuba, what we saw happen in Venezuela, these wolves have an ideology, and it requires to break up the nuclear family. In order for the ideology to work, children have to turn against their parents. I mean, they really do. They have to see the state as first, their parents as second. We've seen that in China. We've seen that in other countries where in Cuba, they would ask people to turn their parents in. After Fidel took power, he said, if your parents don't agree with me or if they disagree with the Communist Party, turn your parents in. This is what scares me. This is what scares me is that I see these teachers asking children, they may be, what do they call them? Useful idiots. They may have been the useful idiots to the old Soviets, right? This kind of indoctrination, but they don't even need to do it. We don't have a Soviet Union anymore, but the Chinese and the old Communist Guard, they don't even need to train our teachers. Like our teachers and some of our top officials and executives in these companies are already bought on the subject. They're already doing the hard work.
Well, if you look at you're absolutely right. And if you just look at the very core of Marxist-Leninist ideology, it's about the collective, it's about the state, and it's about suppressing individual desires and freedoms and those of your family, or in some societies, those of your tribe, for what they would view as the broader good. Unfortunately, the reality of how that ideology has played out historically is it's the elite bureaucrats running the state that get to determine what that greater good is and who the winners and losers are. And it runs absolutely counter to our founding and our values, which emphasize and promote individual liberties, individual freedoms. The sky's the limit if you play by the rules and rule of law. And then that is obviously projected on family values, and with the family as the nucleus. We've seen that play out if you actually read the literature of Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And that at its core is far less about race and much more about ideology and Marxism, and actually talks about the nuclear family and the breakdown of the nuclear family and how we're seeing this play out now. And we're seeing this in our military academies, Sarah. We're seeing it in our university ROTC programs. Is that if this country, at its founding and its core documents, is inherently misogynist, racist, colonialist, and just not a good thing, then it needs to be torn down and rebuilt in this new ideology. And that means turning future generations against the old thinking of their parents. It also means, and this is what I'm really focused on as a member of the Armed Services Committee, with responsibility for training of our military. It also means those entities and those men and women that have to go defend this country,
Right.
and it has critical implications for civilian oversight of the military. How can civilian institutions that are fundamentally bad, one, are they worth dying for? And two, how can you defend something that has been a force for evil around the world? This is in their view, the left's view, versus a force for good. So this has far-reaching implications, and we've got to start at elementary school. We've got to start in what our kids are being taught, but it progresses all the way even over, obviously, to our universities. And I'm very focused on our military academies, Right now, West Point has a seminar that this is United States Military Academy producing Army officers, a seminar of how to cope with your whiteness and your white rage, right? CRT 101 is a part of the curriculum. And when we get the majority back, Sarah, and I will hopefully be chairman of the subcommittee over training, we are gonna rip that garbage out.
That's unacceptable to me, Congressman. It's unacceptable to me. And you know what infuriates me? It'll infuriate me when I see the left praising Zelensky and, and the Ukrainians for standing up to the Russians when the left is actually doing exactly what the old Soviet or Vladimir Putin really believes in. I mean, their behavior is based on the same ideology that he fundamentally believes in. Sure, Zelensky and the Ukrainians are standing up and saying, you are not going to take our country. We are going to fight you like an insurgency. Even if you think you win, you will never win. We'll fight you for 10 years. But we have in our own country a battle for the soul of America. It literally is a battle for our nation's soul and our nation's foundation. Do you feel that way? I mean, I feel like in no time in history have we ever been on the brink of literally possibly losing what our founding fathers wanted to achieve.
Yeah, but it's both. Yes, it's both internal and external. And to your point, you also have the left praising the Maduro regime, which has caused a larger refugee crisis in South America than in Syria. That has, was once the South America's most vibrant economy and most vibrant country. That has just completely ruined it with its socialist ideology. They also, with the Cuban uprising, with people literally putting their lives on the line and their families' lives on the line in Cuba to stand up, and the the left is blaming the United States rather than the Castro regime for their repression. So that's the internal piece, and then of course in education, the internal piece, and then the external piece is the United States has never faced ever an external existential threat like we do in the Chinese Communist Party, because we've never faced an adversary with an economy bigger than ours, and that has successfully managed to infiltrate so many aspects of our society: Hollywood, Wall Street, our political class, academia, and literally corrupt them on Chinese money to the point, to your point on the left in Russia, everybody's virtue signaling. And so many companies even are virtue signaling when it comes to Russia. We're no longer going to drink Russian vodka. We're not going to do business. That doesn't affect their balance sheet. There's a genocide that's been going on for years now in China, but you see all of those same companies turning a blind eye because then their balance sheet would, and their corporate bonuses and executive bonuses would be affected. So, on the one hand, that's great. And we absolutely should stand up with Ukraine. I've been pounding the table since last year, actually since 2014, where we had great, wonderful Green Berets in there training them on how to fight for themselves. But the hypocritical silence when it comes to the Chinese Communist Party is just jaw dropping. It's scary. And it means when they do make their big move on Taiwan, I wonder if you're going to see this same level of unity and solidarity against the Chinese that you are against the Russians. And I really am afraid that we may not.
I think that's such a brilliant point because China and what's happening in China right now and across the globe with the Chinese Communist Party is to me one of the biggest threats we've ever faced. I totally agree with you 100% on that. And I don't know if you've been seeing the videos out of Shanghai, but I've been watching it very closely on Twitter, leaked videos. I'm trying to verify some of it, but a lot of it has been verified. But you see people screaming outside of their high-rise buildings late at night. I've been, retweeting Gordon Chang, an expert, of course, on China, his, Twitter account where he picks things up from Hong Kong and other places. And I've been looking at other people, leaked video, people screaming, people throwing themselves out of buildings in Shanghai during these lockdowns. The Chinese government sending people around and just killing everybody's animals and pets, their dogs. They're saying there's a new COVID outbreak. They're separating children. I mean, these
Yep.
videos are so horrifying. It looks like a terror. I mean, it's like it terrorizes me to think that this is how the people of Shanghai are living. There was a man walking up and down his sidewalk, literally screaming and grabbing his hair, and a woman was trying to drag him in, and he's like yelling at the government, "I can't do this anymore. My mother is starving. My grandmother's starving. I can't see them." What
Mm.
is going on here? Is there something happening in China again that we are unaware of? Or are the Chinese propagandizing, using their people to set us up for something? I'm very worried that we're going to see another strange set of circumstances like we saw with COVID and the lockdowns for 2 years as China restarts and revamps this new propaganda machine. And I'm really worried about it.
Well, and just to put this in perspective, right? Shanghai alone is a city of 25 million people. That is double the size of Manhattan. Imagine if every man, woman, and child in two Manhattans were locked inside and could not leave on instruction from the state. Now, in the United States of America, we never stand for it, right? But I think on the one hand, your heart breaks for these people, but I also think it's incredibly telling for the power that the Chinese Communist Party has accumulated through its techno surveillance state, and where it has social scores, where it now is moving headlong into a digital yuan, a digital currency that it can monitor every single thing that you buy, and the fact that it can lock down 25 million people like this, and believes it can get away with it is pretty incredible. Where's this going, Sarah? I don't think we know. I also worry. Remember, the last three pandemics came from China, and each one was exponentially worse than the next one. We know, thanks to John Radcliffe and others in the Trump administration, that declassified right at the end of the administration because they had no confidence the Biden administration would do it, that the People's Liberation Army, the Chinese army, was actively participating in the Wuhan tests and experimentation. We know that gain of function was absolutely happening. And we have some scientists very familiar with Wuhan that said even more lethal. I mean, this was what, a less than 2% lethality rate if you take everybody into account. What if we had a 25, 30, 40% lethality rate in something that leaked out? And I don't see the Chinese making any steps to correct that situation and correct the lax security that they had. I'll just say big picture, and I say this to the Pentagon all the time. The thing the Chinese government fears the most is its own people, right? They fear another Hong Kong. They fear a Uyghur uprising. Uh, about 90% of China is Han Chinese. Only 10% is not, but that 10% of 1.2 billion is almost the population of the United States, that they are actively oppressing and seeking to control. So when we look at our military strategy, do they fear a couple of more US stealth bombers, or do they fear their own people the most? And that's why we should be we should be penetrating the Chinese firewall and talking about freedom, democracy, helping those that want a better life and that are absolutely had it with this lockdown state. But if we don't win this conflict, what what China is doing to Xinjiang with the Uyghurs, what they're doing to Hong Kong, what they've done to Tibet for years, is what they intend to do for the world. Just listen to Chairman Xi's speeches where he talks about their form of government versus ours, uh, how superior it is, and how they're going to replace the American dream with the China dream.
Gosh, I agree. When you talk about listening to President Xi and watching what he is doing, and watching what he is doing not only in China but what he's doing, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, across the globe, in Africa, in Central America, their expansion in Central America, South America, in the United States of America, where they are purchasing land through
Yep.
companies owning American property and land, ranch lands that were once owned by ranchers and farmers in the Midwest is now under control of the Chinese government, in my opinion. And where we fail is that we do not hold them accountable. Congressman, it wasn't until President Trump came into office, and I remember covering the Pentagon for the Washington Times. I remember covering it under the Obama administration very well. And they did not want to talk about China. Every time poor Bill Gertz with the Washington Times then would write a book or anything, I would hear from either Admiral Mullen or somebody else, well, Bill Gertz isn't going to be in that meeting, is he? Is he going to be talking about China? Are you guys going to be talking about China? This is insane. Yeah. So we're literally allowing the enemy, and I'm going to go jump right to the border. And I know I'm keeping you on forever, but you've got this covered. You know, we've got the Chinese government sending precursor chemicals into Mexico. We have the Mexican drug cartels mixing up those chemicals. And we also have those chemicals coming across into the United States in fentanyl tablets, counterfeit tablets, killing American citizens and children in like irregular warfare in the United States, in my opinion. Why are we doing anything about this?
And Biden has had multiple calls with Chairman Xi, and all of the readouts I've seen, although what he's saying, he said now, is different than what some of the readouts were, but here nor there, I don't think this was raised at all. And you're right, the cartels are making hundreds of millions of dollars. The Chinese are pumping this poison into our system, and it's all over the country. And this administration's not doing a damn thing about it. And Sara, for anybody listening that thinks this sounds fantastical about a Chinese march to become the dominant power and to install their vision of government and through their techno surveillance state, you hit the nail on the head in buying up land. But let's just look at what Putin is doing, how he's tried and has used energy as a weapon. The Chinese are doing that across multiple industries, right? They've now gobbled up 90% of the global pharmaceuticals market. We no longer make penicillin in this country. We no longer make antibiotics. We no longer make oncology meds. So they've gobbled up our pharmaceuticals. They've gobbled up our mineral supplies. They are now gobbling up the food supply. It's not about owning land. It's about controlling our food supply. If you look at the amount of farms that they're buying in South America and Brazil, it's jaw-dropping. They're gobbling up ports. They now own ports on both sides of the Panama Canal. So if we ever have to shift our fleet, or much less, we've seen how shipping can get backed up with global supply chains, and if they can choke off the Panama Canal. So really what this is about is them using all of these industry sectors as a weapon. And if they choke off, if they say, you know what, you need to back off on Taiwan, or we're choking off your access to antibiotics across your country, or we move to a new green economy and they choke off our access to lithium, which produces the batteries that now our economy will run on, they plan to win this economically. And just final point, it has been unbelievable to me to sit in Congress and watch us borrow money from China at a phenomenal rate to then deal with a virus that came from China and then cut stimulus checks also on borrowed money that's going to go through Amazon and Walmart right back to manufacturing in China, while we buy our masks, gloves, and gowns also from China. It's like buying your firefighting supplies from the arsonist that set the fire and having to borrow the money from the arsonist to do so. And the theory of Chinese victory isn't World War III. It's allowing and watching the United States bankrupt itself so that we can't afford to compete, much like Russia did in the 1980s when it could not afford to compete with us anymore. That's their theory of victory. And we've got the left with their foot on the gas, driving us right off the fiscal cliff.
Well, the left has had a lot of experience with China, especially if you look at Hunter Biden and his father, President Joe Biden. I mean, It seems like they are putting their foot on the gas, and they're moving as fast as they can down that highway, and And that's why I love having you on the show, because you're willing to stand up and speak the truth. A lot of people are afraid of China. And even in government, in our government, even as far as like our military, um, there are very few people that are willing to stand up and tell the American people, like, hey, look, we're on a road that we may not be able to turn off of. Like, if we don't stop this, what can the American people do? I mean, do we contact our legislators? I hate leaving people without an answer, because this is, I think, one of the issues that terrifies me the most. What can I do?
So here's what you do. I made an actually a television ad with the NBA player, NBA star, Inez Cantor Freedom. Now, Mr. Changed his last name to Freedom, to run on NBC during the Genocide Olympics. We called out all the companies that wanted to boycott baseball in Georgia over voting reforms, but then turn a blind eye and sponsor the genocide games. So we called them. We called out Coca-Cola, Airbnb, Tesla, all of them. NBC censored our ad, refused to run it, and then made it go viral. But the point of the ad was twofold. We want to talk about defunding police. How about we defund dictatorships? We've got to start voting with our wallets. And there's two key ways that you can do that. Number one, when you see made in China, put it down. Made in America isn't just a jobs issue, it's a human rights issue, but it is also our national security. And we have to help those companies and reinforce those supply chains by by with our wallets. And by it's hard. You've got to do a lot of extra research, and sometimes you got to shop a little further. But when you see made in China, do your best to put it down. Made in America. And this is the other thing, Sarah. Talk to your financial advisor. We are pumping literally trillions of dollars of our capital into Chinese markets through our pension plans, through our retirement funds, through our these index funds that are investing into the Chinese market, and it goes right into their defense industry. It goes right into their debt diplomacy, where they're buying up farms and ports and electrical grids all over the world. And so I've completely divested. And then the third thing is, yes, talk to your politicians about it. I've had conversations with our Florida state legislature, which, by the way, our state pension was investing through some of these vehicles into China. They're now going to pull that money out. And I'm going to keep calling out the Larry Finks of BlackRock and Blackstone and all of these other companies in Wall Street that want to preach social justice here at home and want to talk about ESG and good corporate governance, and pound our farmers, our oil and gas companies, and everybody else over the head. But then are openly talking about the Chinese Communist Party as a great and wonderful form of government, and pouring money into there. So people, this needs to be a grassroots movement. Talk to your financial advisor, and when you see made in China, put it down, and make sure it's the first, second, and third thing you raise with every elected official, because it has to happen at the local level, the state level, and the federal level.
I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to start tweeting out. I'm going to start looking at where our investments are. I know that for my husband, there is no way he would ever invest, Marty, in anything China, and he would just move out of it. But it's like, we don't really know. We don't really know until we ask our financial advisors, like, where's our mutual fund going? I mean, what's in this mutual fund? Where is that money going to? And just the fact that we're supporting a government that is actively working to undermine us and allowing them to support us.
Just on that point, it's not just, is this mutual fund or is this index fund? When you ask your financial advisor, it's not just Chinese companies like Alibaba and Tencent,
Right.
but it's also the companies that are so blatantly hypocritical, like Airbnb, that preaches about Israel or preaches social justice here, but is actually renting homes in Xinjiang, where the Uyghurs are, right down the street from concentration camps. So that'll take a little more research about the American companies that are complicit, but you've got to carve them out of your portfolios. They will only listen. This is why they listen to the left, right? they love to boycott, and they love to shame and cancel. Conservatives don't think that way, but we've got to start voting with our wallets in line with our values.
100%. Gosh, I hope you come back on the show, Congressman. I feel like I learn so much every time I talk to you. There's a few people that this happens with, and it happens with you all the time. I mean, I feel like you opened up a whole new area that I could be doing more about, that I could be exposing, to the public more through my platforms. And specifically, I agree with you. I think this is about the future of the United States of America. It's about saving our nation and saving our children and our grandchildren from what could be a very dangerous and bleak future if we don't wake up. I don't want to be asleep at the wheel anymore. And I don't think anybody who listens to this show wants to be asleep at the wheel. Thank you so much, Congressman, for being a part of the show. This is going to be great. And I love the idea of writing this children's book. I think that's a great way to start. Remember, folks, Congressman Waltz's new children's book is Dawn of the Brave. You can get it at bravebooks.us. You got to go to bravebooks.us because he is not supporting Amazon with this book. No, he is doing the right thing and selling it, on your own platform where it won't go to China. Maybe only unless the Chinese parents want to buy the book for their children and they can get it into China. That would be amazing.
That's phase 2, to start smuggling these good conservative books in. But right now, I want to smuggle them into American libraries and elementary schools, past the progressive Praetorian Guard. I just can't emphasize enough. We're all complaining about what's going on in our country and the threats from abroad. Let's be part of the solution. Let's take our kids' education back. Let's take our finances back and get it out of the hands of the CCP, and let's take our country back.
I think it's really important what Congressman Waltz said for all of us, right? That he gave us solutions. And that's what I like as well. I don't want to sit there and think of that this is the end of everything, that we won't be able to do anything. No, we can do something about it now. We actually can get out there. We can fight the good fight by not buying things from China, by standing up to companies that support the Chinese government and saying, no way, we're not going to do this. It's a human rights issue. It's a national security issue. And I know I'm going to do my part, and I know you'll do your part. And you know who else is going to help us? It's going to be AMAC. And I love, love, love AMAC because they are vigilant in the defense of our freedom, guys. There is no better way to do so than to fight for your nation than by joining AMAC right now, because they're going to fight for you up on Capitol Hill. And I know them, and I know they are doing it. This is not just some kind of ad or some kind of promo. I know they're out there fighting the good fight. I talk to them, I know them, and I know who they are. By joining AMAC, you are taking the first steps to saving the America you love. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every benefit that other group offers. But guess what? No liberal agenda. I stand with AMAC, and I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join today at amac.us/Carter. That's amac.us/Carter. The benefits of membership are great, but guess what? The cause is even greater. Join at amac.us/Carter. Guys, before I let you go, there is one thing I do want to talk about. And this to me is just outrageous, but it's what the Biden administration is doing with Iran. And it is so bad. It is so horrible. This nuclear deal with Iran that I believe is an Obama legacy. I believe this is what President Obama wanted President Biden in there for anyways, was to reemerge one of the worst deals that the United States has ever made. I remember when General Michael Flynn came out before the White House, this is in the short tenure that he had as President Trump's national security advisor, and he put Iran on notice. And he said, this deal is done. It is done. But Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and the rest of and any Republican who votes with Democrats needs to be ashamed of themselves, and they should not support any deal that includes Iran. This deal will allow Iran to move as fast as possible, exponentially fast, to developing nuclear arsenal for its military. Do not be fooled. It is going to checkmate even our allies in the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia and others who do not want to see the rise of a Shia regime in Iran over the Middle East. They don't want to see what they call the Shia crescent. Remember, the Saudis are Sunni. They don't get along with each other. And you have Israel right now. And Israel is like on the edge, right? Israel's saying, we're option A. Iran gets this deal back. Iran starts developing its nuclear weapons. And we're going to be the first to target Iran. One of the things that PJ Media, and I love reading PJ Media, I think they're great and they have great columns. One of the articles there, it talks about the deal right now. And it says, Biden's handlers are considering dropping the terrorist designation, which is true, of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Remember, we killed Soleimani under President Trump. He was killed. Why? Because he is was one of the world's biggest terrorists. And this is obviously one of the world's biggest terrorist regimes. But now Biden is considering dropping that terrorist designation of the IRGC. And I'm telling you, once they do that, they've opened up a whole new can of worms. Look at all the money that was handed over to the Iranian regime. Look at what is happening across the globe. And you got to ask yourself, why is this government so desperate to aid and abet enemies of the United States? Why are they so desperate? When we know for a fact, and we've seen it in IRGC statements, that they want to eliminate Israel off the face of the earth, our ally. They want to kill all Jews just because they're Jews. They want to target every American asset globally. And we've seen their relationship with Russia. And we've seen how Russia plays with Iran and moves weapons to Iran. And who lifted those sanctions back? Obama. Obama did. Look, 2010. Look at how Obama lifted sanctions so that Russia could sell weapons to Iran. You have to ask yourself, who is the enemy of America? And why are there Americans, even in this government, all the way up to President Trump, willing to cut deals with an enemy state that wants to annihilate us and our greatest ally in the Middle East, Israel? I think that's the question that we need to be asking, because we're not getting anything in return, guys. We're not going to get anything in return but damage to our country. Thank you so much for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. I was so grateful to have Congressman Michael Waltz on the show. I invite him to come back on anytime to teach us what we don't know about such complicated issues and put it in layman's terms so that we can do something to fight back. Remember, you can get all the stories and all the links to my social media at saracarter.com. That is saracarter.com. And while you are there, sign up for our email list so that you don't get shadow banned. Again, thank you so much for joining the show. God bless our great nation. God bless you, and God bless the great state of Texas.
The mainstream media does not cover some of the most important news of the day. I'm Byron York from The Byron York Show. In my latest episodes, I talk about how in the Democrats' search for a new villain, they have found their way back to Donald Trump. The U.S.-Mexico border is a disaster that's only going to get worse, and reporters are getting scrutinized for asking really, really simple questions at White House press briefings. Do not forget to download and subscribe to my daily No Chit Chat podcast to hear the news of the day, politics to public issues. I don't shy away from the truth. Subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.